Said two good-looking guys. I think.
Hi, I want to welcome everyone. I'm Dr. Stephen Procopio. I'm the president of the Public Affairs Research Council of Louisiana, better known as PAR. We're a nonprofit, independent, nonpartisan state policy research and watchdog group. As part of our webinar series, today we're discussing the restructuring of the Department of Transportation and some other potential reforms. Before we go on, I want to really thank our sponsor, the Louisiana Independent Pharmacy Association, who represent your local community of pharmacies, for making this webinar possible. Thank them very much. Okay, there's been a lot of discussion in the legislature session so far about DOTD, the Department of Transportation, structural changes, lots of things ranging from how the department is done, what the leadership will look like, and it's been a priority for the governor. And we know there is a litany of things that need help if infrastructure in the state. We got our $19 billion backlog. We have inflation and construction costs is rising, eating into the 20-cent sales tax or gas tax, and more fuel efficient vehicles. Billions of dollars from a report saying that on wear and tear, basically on the roads and conditions of our streets. So today we're going to talk about how all those things are going to get fixed. So, and to do that, we have a fantastic panel. I want to thank them so much. First, we have Secretary Joe Donahue, Secretary of the Department of Transportation Development, and Senate Transportation Chairman Patrick Connick. Thank y'all both for being here so much. I think we have a lot of questions. We actually have a large number of people that have signed up, and just to let y'all know, they will be able to put questions in there. I'm going to start with a few broad questions. Our participants will be able to put questions in the Q&A section. After we do a couple of questions for myself and Melinda, then we will start turning to those. Melinda will summarize and ask them. This will all also be later on our YouTube channel. So with that, since we have a lot of people, let's go and get started. Two broad questions, but let me start with you, Secretary Donahue. What did Governor Landry task you with as related to DOTD when you took office?
So the governor basically asked me to work to reestablish trust with both the legislature and with the public. I think for a long while, DOTD was kind of viewed as a big black box that money went into, but not a whole lot of information came out of. And so, I had the benefit of having worked at the department for several years prior to coming back as the head. And so I came in with certain ideas as to where there were areas of improvement, but over the course of the last 15 or 16 months have certainly identified many more. And so, with the assistance of the Boston Consulting Group report that the legislature funded, have been working to identify and take action to address issues that have been longstanding that may inhibit the efficient delivery of transportation infrastructure.
Okay, and we're gonna get into some details of those later, like top one or two. We'll get into the details, but what are the top one or two issues you have to tackle?
Certainly. So, I mean, I would say, that first and foremost in my mind is project delivery. But, that kind of falls under the larger rubric of transparency that I was kind of talking about. And so the method in which that we prioritize projects and actually deliver them has been a large focus. And, part of our initiatives in reforming the department, we've captioned it T4LA. And it is, having that information ready access so that folks can not only see which projects are moving and why, but where they are in the process.
All right, thank you. Senator Connick, okay, legislators, as well as a lot of citizens and local governments have complained about the pace of projects for years, if not decades, if not since its beginning. What do you see as the primary concerns for yourself and for the legislature and as chair? And broadly, where do you see the areas for improvement?
I think the project delivery is the key. We have to become more efficient. And I think, DOTD, now I got to give kudos to Joe for his work, work with him. He's been, when you call him, he answers. But getting DOTD rank and file to respond to the needs. And as a senator in a large district, my district goes from Avondale all the way to the mouth of the river. It's a lot of roads and bridges there. They need a lot of maintenance and a lot of attention. and getting DOTD to respond to the needs instead of saying, we're looking into it, we got to do a study. People don't want to hear that. They want action. And that's what we need to stress to the folks in Baton Rouge and DOTD, saying, you got to respond to the people who are paying you. And that's the push I'm making.
That's fantastic. Look, for everyone that wants to put a question in there, I would urge you to put them in sooner rather than later, because I'll tell you what happens on most of our webinars. About halfway through, people start throwing in questions. And so we want to get through all of them as possible. So the sooner you put your question in there, the more likely we'll be able to answer it. And we're going to try to get to all of them. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Melinda to ask a little more detailed questions. Melinda?
Thank you. Secretary Donahue, you mentioned the Boston Consulting Group, which was a consultant, an outside consultant that looked at the department that was paid by the legislature. Among the many things that they said in their long report, they raised concerns about inadequate funding, a lack of consistency in rankings, which road and bridge projects should be priorities, high staff turnover, limited performance tracking. That's a lot of things to tackle. In response, you've already released a strategic improvement plan. Can you briefly talk about what changes you've made so far to respond to that consultant's report, and then what changes might be planned in the future?
Certainly. Thank you, Melinda. Yes. And so, while the Boston Consulting report, those items were included in it, we had a very collaborative working relationship with BCG whenever they were in the building. And so some of those things that made it into the report were actually things that we had identified on our own first. And so we have had the opportunity to begin working on these things. And I mentioned T4LA. We will have a dashboard, basically, T4LA.com, that tracks 12 separate initiatives that are being worked by an implementation group over here, a transformation team that have individual initiative owners within the department. And so there are several related to project delivery. Some of those being the progress and the actual delivery of projects, being the design and making those ready for let. And so there were some different tools that we have provided. And then, also along with that is a project viewer, basically, so that, individuals or legislators can get on the internet and identify a specific project of interest, identify its location and where in the process that project is. You may have heard me speak before about data governance. One of the things that surprised me whenever I came into this role is that I would ask a question, and depending upon the context that I was asking or the reason that I was asking, I may get a different answer. And so we're implementing some data governance procedures to make certain that there is one true answer, correct answer to every question that is asked. And DOTD houses a lot of information, so that's a big undertaking. We also have several initiatives that are focused on specific types of infrastructure. And so we have a bridge program that we've been working on, the purpose of which is to bundle several of your simpler bridges that need rehab or replacement, to let those under some of our alternative delivery methods and get those out there and get work moving. I will say that you're absolutely correct that funding is a limitation that affects all of the initiatives that we have. But the goal of the Department Strategic Improvement Plan that was issued and incorporated the recommendations from Boston Consulting Group was to identify efficiencies that basically would result in a net zero revenue impact. And so these are things that we have been working on, things that, at least we're able to get off the ground running without having that additional revenue, but which could benefit, down the road and be expanded out to further areas. But I would say that, for a more comprehensive discussion of our various initiatives, eventually it will be linked from DOTD's homepage. We are finalizing that project viewer that I discussed. And so we will have a dashboard that tracks all of those initiatives that I mentioned, the 12 different ones, all with the goal of, again, providing transparency to the public and to the legislature so that they have ready access to our information, and that the executive staff and folks in the building aren't trying to run down answers to specific questions as they pop up.
Real quick, fantastic on the transparency and the the dashboard. Are we talking a matter of days, weeks, months, years in terms of when it'll start to roll out?
I think it should be done this week, Steve.
Oh,
I said the project viewer, it's not going to have all of the department's
Okay.
projects in it at the time of launch because we have to go through and vet all that information. And there's still a couple of kinks that are being worked out, but I think that we're about ready to go live. And I think if you went to t4la.com right now, you would see the dashboard that identifies those individual initiatives that we've been working.
thank you.
As someone who lives in Baton Rouge and always wants to know when road projects are going to be finished, thank you. Senator Connick, what do you see in terms of the department's improvement plan? Is that enough change? Is that what the kind of change that you've been looking for? And what have you heard from the members of your committee about this? Are they pleased with the progress? Do they want more? Kind of where do they stand?
Right now it's on paper. We want to see results. And I think that's what we're going to be pushing. Currently, I think, and I told the secretary this, and I told the district directors this, is that there's a disconnect right now between what's happening in Baton Rouge and what's going on the ground. And I'll give you two examples. In my district, there's the Harvey Tunnel, built in 1956. Because of the money that came down from the federal government, DOTD made a decision to rebuild it. I mean, they're doing a fantastic job. It's going to be state of the art with all the new tile, and it's going to be really something special. And we thank the OTD for doing that. But when the contract was written, they had 4 lanes of travel, 2 going west, 2 going east, shut down for 800 days. So whoever wrote that contract, whoever signed that contract, did not come talk to the folks at the tire shop or the Burger King, where there would be no traffic at all for 800 days. And those businesses would shut down because you would either have to go to 4th Street or you have to go to Elevated Expressway. That's what I'm pushing the secretary in his leadership to say, have those guys who are making these decisions, see how they affect real life people. When I found out about the contract, I went to see Secretary Donahue. He jumped on it. We got the contractor in, and they made a decision to, okay, we're going to open 2 lanes and close 2 lanes and alternate them. It's going to extend the contract in the time, but it's going to allow some of these businesses to continue to operate and live and make a living. And that's the key. So I think that's the focus on what I'm pushing, is that realize how your decisions are being made to the folks the citizens I represent. And so they responded, and I thank you for that. The other one is the Bell Chase Bridge. Now, this is a bridge going across a canal, basically. And when it's all said and done, it's going to cost between $700 and $8 million over a canal. And it's a toll bridge that these folks have to pay to get back, go to school, go get groceries. It's a 1-lane bridge, I mean, basically one way into this parish, Plaquemines Parish. They have a construction site down there, the LNG plant, 6,000 workers at one time, the largest construction site in the world. And that traffic is a nightmare. So whoever wrote that contract did not tell the folks in Plaquemines Parish, this is what you're going to have, this is what's going to cost. They just made the deal and say, hey, pay for it. It involves taking out the tunnel, and also takes out the old bridge. That's added cost that the tolls payer has to pay. So I think if we can focus on how one engineer has to go throughout the whole process. He can't do the contract, design it, and give it to the guy on the ground. And there's a disconnect there. They need to understand how decisions are made in Baton Rouge, how they affect either positively or negatively the folks that have to live with this construction.
Okay. I think Secretary Donahue is probably taking notes on what the Transportation Committee Chairman thinks here.
He's
Um,
heard that before.
Not more than one time, Melinda.
Okay, so there are 3 different bills being debated in the current legislative session about restructuring, reorganizing the way Louisiana handles road and bridge work and infrastructure. They make a ton of changes, so I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs of each piece of it, but I do want to ask, there's sort of a theme through a lot of them about more privatization of services and turning more to the private sector to do things. I'm going to start with Secretary Donahue, but Senator Connick, I also want to ask you the same questions. Do you see privatization as a benefit? And if so, can you talk through why? And if not, why not? And then can you talk about the financial implications? Because obviously privatizing will have some impact on the state fisc.
Certainly. Thank you again, Melinda. That there absolutely are benefits to privatization. And the department heavily privatizes its work currently. And so, with the resources that we have, the personnel resources at the department, there is much more work that we deliver than we could handle in-house. And so, around a little more than half of the design work that we do is not done in-house, that is done by consultants. And then the vast majority of the construction work, of course, is done by private industry. And so, going back to the Boston Consulting Group report, I think what they said is 100% accurate. Is that outsourcing everything is neither advisable nor possible. That there needs to be some in-house provisions, and there was no recommendation that the current staffing of the department was too labor heavy, too personnel heavy. What they did say is that perhaps some of the functions that some of those positions are serving, maybe those transition to something different in the event that you get additional funding and are delivering a lot more projects. But the financial impact, of course, there's been multiple studies that have been done nationwide and several that have been done on DOTD specifically that compare the cost of work performed, either in-house or outside of the building. And it typically is, the most recent study I looked at, for a consultant designing a project, it costs about 20% more than having the in-house forces perform that same work. And so if we're looking at outsourcing, a high level of stuff outside of the department, and there are plenty of opportunities in areas that we've not yet explored that I think make a whole lot of sense. But BCG also said that not in every instance will that be the case, and that in many instances, some of those functions, if you outsource them, they will be less efficient. So you take that into account. And if we have the same amount of funding that we have now, if we outsource everything to the maximum amount possible, what you would have is a delivery of even less work than we have currently, because you've got that 20% cost increase on the design end in particular. I do think that there is a whole lot of opportunity for operations and maintenance, and DOTD already outsources a lot more of those types of functions than other state DOTs. But I think that there is the opportunity to expand some of that privatization in the operations and maintenance functions, and that we again need to gradually ramp up, identify those areas where it makes a whole lot of sense. Typically, it will be your cyclical stuff, your routine stuff that is not of an emergency nature, and there is no time component, I will say. The grass cutting is an excellent example. So I don't think that anybody in the department nor outside of the department would shed a single tear if the department were to outsource all of the grass cutting of the state right-of-ways across the state. But just because some of those privatization opportunities make sense does not mean that you ship out all of the purposes and functions that the people in headquarters or in the districts perform, because that just doesn't make a fiscal or just rational sense.
Senator Connick, where are you on privatization? Would you like to see more of it from the department?
I guess to answer that question, you got to answer, will the privatization make things more efficient, deliver more things quickly? That's the kind of answers I want. Just throw, like, they're going to privatize this, but what's going to be the result? And we need to be results driven. But we're caught in a state with a civil service system, either good or bad. In preparation of this webinar, I Googled up, the positives and negatives of civil service. And the positives are it's merit-based, job security, professionalism, skilled workforce, and politically neutral. The negatives are bureaucratic inertia, slow, reluctant to change due to rigid rules, limited accountability, complacency, job security, lack of innovation, overly complex, hard to remove, non-performance, and expensive. So if privatization can, remedy those negatives, we need to do it as much as possible.
Okay, I'm going to move to, we have a bunch of questions that have come in from people who are watching. So some of them, not shockingly, are asking for timelines on road and bridge projects that they're interested in. So a couple of these we can probably do fairly quickly. Secretary Donahue, we have somebody who has asked about the construction completion timeline for the I-10 widening project in the Baton Rouge area. What's the current completion date?
That may sound like a simple question, but the project, the total project footprint is from west of the Mississippi River Bridge to LA 415, and the eastern limit is on the I-10-12 split, basically to the Essen Lane exit. And so I will say that currently we are working on the contract for the first segment of that project. The portion of work that you see going on right now, that's what's termed an early works package. This is a construction management at risk project. And so that work is preparing for the actual construction of the widening of the City Parks Lake Bridge. The execution of that contract is expected by the end of the year. And I think the timeline for the delivery of that first section, which is the foot of the bridge to the Perkins on and off ramps, that'll be about 5 years in construction. So for the full build out, there is no identified timeline as of yet because the funding has not been identified, particularly for the western portion, the portion west of the existing bridge. We do have also the LA1 construction that's going on. We built one span of the new bridge right there and another, and so there's some timing considerations that need to be taken into account when doing that western portion as well. But again, I think that all indications are that we will be fully under construction, not just an early works package by the end of this year. And so we will have a big chunk, the most expensive and the most involved portion of that project, likely by completed by 2031, I believe.
Okay. This one maybe will be a quick one. What is the link to the dashboard that you were discussing?
So that website is www.t4la.com. And so again,
T4la.com, and it's the number 4 not written out.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
And there should be a link coming to our new website soon as well. So.
Okay, great. Senator Connick, this question is for you. Do you envision that the proposed legislation that creates the Louisiana Highway Construction Authority, do you envision that will eventually house the majority or all of the current DOTD duties and staff? There's obviously a piece of one of the bills moving through that would create this new Highway Construction Authority, and it would move it to the Division of Administration. Are you seeing that, Senator Connick, as a way to move a lot of the DOTD employees and staff over there?
HB 621, creates the Louisiana Highway Construction Authority, and under that role, the director will not be civil service. However, he's going to be replacing the chief engineer from what the legislation says. I do not see, if someone comes over from DOTD, they may need to. I mean, that department needs to be staffed, and I see them coming over, but they will not lose their civil service protection on that. So, but I think you have more freedom, more accountability, and more ability to act quickly and act decisively to get some of these projects built. And that's the whole purpose of that legislation. But I think anybody who comes across, I don't think it's been the entire department, but some essential personnel.
Okay. Secretary Donahue, I wanted you to jump in on that one because it's some of the bills propose transferring the authority for the deputy secretary of the department to be an appointee of the governor. And then obviously this new office for highway construction would be moved over into the division. So what do you think of those ideas in terms of taking some of the authority and moving it elsewhere?
So, I mean, it doesn't bother me, the moving of the authority. And, I consider this as, again, trying to reestablish that trust. So if the legislature and Chairman Boriak, have ideas about how to better deliver infrastructure projects, then by all means, I will be supportive of that effort. I don't think that I read into 621 what Chairman Connick stated in as much as the department's chief engineer. In the original version of the bill, I think it did eliminate that position. Maybe not in 621, but in 556. But amendments to the bill after that restored that. The chief engineer position, although it did basically combine the Office of Planning and the Office of Engineering into a single office in the Office of Project Development. But the way that I understand the Louisiana Office of Highway Construction is that it will be primarily responsible for the non-federal aid routes, which are the shorter roads, the ones that are less traveled, have less average daily traffic on them. And that is a defined term in federal law, actually. So it's your rural minor collectors and local roads. And, I've spoken many times about how, in particular, those local roads are prime candidates for transfer to local jurisdictions, either the parish or the municipality, because they don't really serve the purpose that the state highway system is supposed to serve. And I think that's reflected to a certain extent in the revisions that provide that the Office of Highway Construction, the ability to enter into those transfer agreements to pull those miles out of the state highway system. But it's still about 5,000 miles of state highway. We have a lot of rural areas in the state, and so it is a big chunk of the state highway system. And so the focus still needs to be on maintaining connectivity, making certain that commerce can move throughout the state. And I fully expect that the director of that entity would be of the same mind, and so would work very closely together with them in the event that the bill is enacted into law to make certain that we're doing best for what's best for the citizens of Louisiana.
Okay, and just to be clear, we did invite House Transportation Committee Chairman Boriak here today. Unfortunately, because of some scheduling issues, he's chairing a transportation committee meeting right now, so he could not join us. But I did want to explain why he was unable to be with us today for that discussion.
That's an excused absence.
It is a very excused absence. So
I got an excused absence from the committee hearing too.
One of the questions we have here is very in the weeds about the capital outlay process, but I'm going to try and sum it up, which is essentially suggesting that part of the problem in moving projects through is the capital outlay process itself, that legislators go in and insert new projects while other projects that are in the pipeline get slowed down because the capital outlay budget as a whole is overloaded. So Senator Connick, do you think that the capital outlay process has caused some of the problems in terms of how the transportation projects are handled, or do you think that it is more DOTD problem?
I think honestly, I think it's a mix. I'm going to fight as hard as I can for my district. We have so much needs there. We need a new bridge going to Plaquemines Parish. We need an overpass in the Avondale area. And if I can get it in a budget and get it rolling and get it built, I'm going to fight. And that's every senator and that's every rep doing that. So it's part of the political process. It's a reality that we got to deal with. But the prioritization of what goes first and what goes last is it's just something that's life in Baton Rouge. So I think it's to answer your question, it's a mix of both. It's a necessary result of people fighting for their districts.
Understood. Secretary Donahue, does capital outlay, does the process help or hinder DOTD in terms of how the projects go through?
So I get to go back to the BCG report again, Melinda, and they identified that very thing. I think the Chairman Connick did a great job of characterizing, the issue is that, yes, absolutely, each one of those elected representatives has a duty to advocate for the needs of their constituents. But at the end of the day, the sole way that projects are supposed to get to construction, according to the Constitution, is through the priority program. Now, again, we are going, just like Senator Connick said, I'm going to work with the legislators because the highway priority program, it lacks transparency. And Senator Connick can tell you that the information that we were putting out there very recently had issues with it and was unreliable. And I was horrified when I found out, that I had gone up there and represented this book, this document to be one thing, and then found out afterwards that I could not rely upon the information that was in there. And so that was one of the realizations that resulted in some of those initiatives that I was talking about. But no, in a properly functioning department, properly funded department, I think that you do rely on that highway priority program process to identify the needs, to prioritize the project, and then to have those projects advance along the pathway according to their priority. And that's how other states do it. And that they have a much less hands-on, I don't want to say interference, but involvement with the legislature, and they get a lot more done. And so you can imagine how it can upset the flow of work whenever you've been working on a project for a while, and then all of a sudden there's an urgent need. And a new project that comes along, and it's okay, well, shift your attention now over to this project. And so you've got a brand new project that's starting up from scratch, where one that has been in the works now is kind of sitting there and languishing because of the political desire to advance one over the other. And so I think that that's been the circumstances in Louisiana for quite some time. And again, to just go back to funding, if there was enough money to build all of the projects, I think that would be a much more palatable option from the legislature's point of view, because to the senator's point, if you don't fight for them, then the weight that you've got to get at the back end of that $19 billion backlog, I mean, you will likely be dead by the time that you see a shovel go into the ground on that project that's last in line. So it is kind of the state of affairs that we are dealing with, but it is certainly not ideal.
One of the questions we have is one of our viewers likes the discussion of transparency and dashboards, but wants to see projects moving overall more quickly. So in terms of the strategic improvement plan and the things that you are doing internally, have you found a way to move projects faster? Are there things that the department has not been doing that can help move these projects and shovels in the ground just more quickly and get through the regulatory tape faster?
So there are lots of opportunities. I will say that other states have NEPA assignment, where your environmental reviews that you perform on behalf of the federal government, that those are performed largely within the State Department of Transportation. I will say that DOTD, that's currently not an option, just because of the staffing and the additional funding that's required to undergo those efforts. I will say that there are things in the advertisement process and in the bringing consultants, the contracting mechanisms that we use that have been identified for improvement. So where a deadline, you may get 90 days to negotiate prices for a consultant's fee. Maybe that should be shortened to 30 days and things of that nature. The fact of the matter is that I know that the senator hates the word study, but you do have to study some of these things. And that's another constitutional requirement, that if it's going to be a project that's in capital outlay, you have to perform a feasibility study before it could be included in it. And so, the engineering and when you're talking about, hundreds or thousands of people a day traveling over a piece of infrastructure, that takes engineering. It takes time to deliver those plans. And then it takes time to actually physically construct it too. And so I will say that broadly, yes, there are improvements, but it's not as if we're going to be able to go from a concept for something that might be beneficial to shovels in the ground the next week, which is, seems like there's a never-ending appetite for that level of speed in delivering highway infrastructure. Are there opportunities for improvement? Absolutely. But I think even the best, most efficiently operating state Department of Transportation, the citizens of those states still are very frustrated at the amount of time it takes to build roads and bridges. So,
And I want to
Senator
add that, can I add something?
Of course.
Some of this doesn't take money. Some of this takes the will of the DOTD employee to get the job done. And I think we had a meeting with Secretary Donahue with a landscape architect about, she has permits waiting to be signed off on in Baton Rouge. We called for a meeting, and we had, before the meeting, the ones that the permits that were sitting for months were approved and ready to go. But it took a call of a meeting with the secretary on these permits to get them rolling. That's when, and there's a culture that we need to fix. I think that, and I'm speaking it as a member of the legislature. They see this as a culture of, we need people who want to work and just get things done, be innovative, don't be complacent. How do we change that? And I think Joe has a tough job to get that. How do you motivate the DOTD employees to let's work hard. Let's get this thing done. Let's be creative and let's get these jobs done. Issuing permits and signing off of permits shouldn't take forever. And that's going to move the projects. And the money's coming from all sources. You got federal dollars, you got capital outlay, you have all these grants coming in. So the money is there for a lot of these projects to get done, but we need the motivation of the DOTD employees. And it's hard for me to say that, I don't want to insult anyone, but that's the feeling that we have as legislators, that be creative and work hard, and don't be complacent in your job just because you're protected by civil service. How do we do that, Joe?
I will say, Senator, that in the particular instance that you referenced, I don't think that's what it was, and I cannot say that throughout the department you will always have problem employees, and DOTD is a large agency, and so we likely do have more so than some of the other agencies. But I think the issue that created that particular problem, and it's another one of our initiatives that we have, it was inconsistencies in the department's policies. And so we've got a policy for landscaping that is something that is what everybody understands you're supposed to follow, which is different than what's published in Title 70 of the Louisiana Administrative Code. And so during that conversation, it was exciting to see the look of promise, I guess I will say, on the individual's eyes whenever I readily acknowledged that from your perspective, looking at the administrative code, you would never know or understand what the issue was that was holding up these permits. And we are working on that, and it's a tall task. I mean, DOTD, very technical agency. We've got all of Title 70, all of Title 73. We're scattered here, there, and everywhere. But it is the goal to go through every single one of those rules and make sure they align with current departmental policy, and to provide the public and industry and the legislature an opportunity to identify areas of improvement in those rules that we have out there and the way that the department functions. I will say that I think that I haven't worked with all 4,300 people at DOTD, but I've worked with my fair share. And they are, having worked at 3 different state agencies, some of the most dedicated, hardworking folks that I've encountered in state government. Again, I know that is not 100% true across the board, but they do a very good job with very limited means. And even, the legislature, I think, has acknowledged on multiple occasions that the funding for the department is inadequate. And we know this, but the desire to basically blame civil service or to blame the employees, it may be much easier, but I don't think that you can efficiency your way into better roads and bridges in the state of Louisiana.
Okay,
Ultimately,
I'm gonna jump in
sorry.
here because no, y'all are hitting on. I love the back and forth, and I feel like
Sure.
y'all are probably are
Yeah,
gonna have
I
some
can say one
conversations
more,
offline.
I can give another example.
The senator
But-
gets the last word.
But
Let's say this, PAR might come back with a civil service reform panel maybe next month or something. We can tackle that very important issue. But I think you make good points.
Also, we have a ton of people who have thoughts on civil service in the question and answer section, just so you know. But y'all have both touched on a specific issue that lots of our watchers have questions about, which is funding and whether or not more money is needed. And what I hear from Senator Connick is what I feel like I've heard a lot from legislators over the years, which is nobody wants to look at increasing the 20-cent gas tax until there are some reorganizational things done in DOTD and there are some changes made to the structure of the organization. So there are no gas tax increases proposed this session. There's no road usage fee that I've seen or other new source of funding for DOTD. So Senator Connick, does that sum up sort of where y'all are? Y'all want to see at the legislative level, you want to see changes made to the department before you're willing to consider increased funding for the department?
Listen, I think this is the first step we met with the governor several times, and this is one of his his things to get DOTD more efficient. And I think if we do that, if we pass this law and make the way we do business with DOTD less rigid and less, here's the rules you got to follow, even though they make no sense. If we change that, and I don't want to criticize the department, you guys got some great people there, and I appreciate you do, but some of the rules have to go, and some of the rigid, they don't make sense. Let's change that. And I think if we change that, then come back to the public and say, hey, we're going to raise your gas tax because it needs to be raised. It hasn't been raised in years, decades. And but that money that's raised got to be spent on delivery of projects. And that's what we got to deliver for the public, to the people.
And Secretary Donahue, I want you to be able to answer that. Do you think there will be support in the future for additional funding for DOTD of some kind for a gas tax increase? Will you be asking for that at some point?
Well, certainly, and so we had prepared basically a cafeteria of options for this session, and understand exactly what Chairman Connick is saying, and I think that he accurately is stating the governor's position, and that is the position that he stated whenever I agreed to take this role, and so I have been working for the last year plus, trying to do those reforms and implement those measures. Again, I think that the transparency is key. The ability for folks to understand, to the senator's point, and to see what it is that we do over here and how the money is being spent and how projects are being delivered, and to say what we're going to do and then do what we say. I think that is my hope of the improvements that I can bring to the agency that would hopefully reestablish that trust and justify the political will that it takes to go out there and advocate for an increase in taxes, which nobody likes and is a very difficult proposition. So, I don't think under any circumstances that, raising additional revenue, even as important as it is to not just economic development, but to the everyday lives of the citizens of the state, that it's not lost on me the challenge that presents. And so I fully understand and am working fully cooperatively with Chairman Connick and Chairman Boriak in advancing what they think is important and the things that they want to see from the department in order to take that next step. And so one of the things that did come up at the last House Transportation Committee was we have our sunset is up this year, and so Chairman Boriak proposed to extend us for another year. Which was done last year. We were up last year, got extended for a year. Typically, it's four or more years. And you know, I said I fully support that if you feel that's necessary, but also pointed out that, you know, in the sunset process, the legislature also has a role in as much as they provide the topics of discussion that they want to hear testimony on, the areas of focus where they would like to see improvement. And so it's easier, I think, from my perspective, to address issues that I know if you let me know that this is something that we need to be focusing on, then we're happy to do that. Again, that is the purpose of T4LA, is to implement those recommendations that were made by the Boston Consulting Group. And so, you know, nobody at DOTD is retreating back into the corner and refusing to do anything. We're willing to change, and we want to work, and we want to be better, and we want to have adequate funding to meet the needs of the state. And whatever it takes to get to that point, we're all in and willing to do that.
We have a couple questions about the morale at DOTD and people who have thoughts about that, but I'm just going to ask very broadly, Secretary Donahue, what is the message that you're giving to DOTD employees about these reorganization efforts and sort of broadly about the work that they do?
You know, I think that you know, most of the folks at DOTD, I think this is not their first rodeo. They've been through reform efforts with the agency, those that have been here, you know, for a long amount of time. And so they're more familiar with it. I would say the newer employees are the ones that have a little bit more anxiety, I think. And, you know, it may be the nature of the engineers are more technically minded people, but I think that, you know, and what I tell them is, you know, whatever the political winds are, I said, you know, do the business of the agency, focus of on the work. And again, I mean, I don't think it hurts that I do think the best of the folks at the department, and I tell them that, and I see them working very hard and have the opportunity to go out there and thank them for their efforts. I mean, just in the last 15 months, I mean, you know, we had a blizzard in southern Louisiana. We had a Super Bowl that was over here, all of which required, you know, efforts that were beyond the typical day-to-day business of the agency. And I mean, the department personnel, you know, passed with flying colors. I mean, it could not have gone better. Add on to that the fact that we had, you know, another $285 million in preservation projects that were tacked on to the projects that were in the existing pipeline in last year's funding bills. So they have been, you know, a model employees, I will say. They have met the call with what was an enormous amount of work that concerned me as to whether or not they were going to be able to deliver on the expectations that were placed on. And so, you know, if anything, I hope that I am encouraging that, again, that they are valued at the department, and that their work is very valued, and that I appreciate it, and so do the people of the state of Louisiana. And the rhetoric, all rhetoric aside, I think that the legislature appreciates the DOTD personnel too. You know, every year we go out there and do what's called the road show, where we have legislative hearings in each of the DOTD's 9 districts across the state. Senator Connick, you know, chaired half of them, and Chairman Boriak chaired the other half. And by and large, the folks that come out to those meetings are locals and local officials that come out there to praise their local district administrators and the work that they've done, the responsiveness of DOTD whenever someone is in need of a repair or assistance with a project or anything else. And so I think that you know, that response and kudos are not by any means you know, all over the place or inundating the department, but whenever those folks that are boots on the ground are the ones that are most appreciative of the department and the work that is being done, I think it speaks a lot and means a lot to the people in the agency that are in direct contact with those folks.
Senator Connick, we have a ton of questions coming in, so I'm just going to say we're not getting to all of them. I'm so sorry. Apparently, this is a very interesting topic to folks. Senator Connick, one of the things that is being asked in a couple different ways is whether or not the legislative discussion about reorganization of DOTD will give more authority to the district level folks to help speed up projects in some way and to give elected officials, the local elected officials, more influence in how those projects go. Is that part of the discussion, and is that a big priority to you as part of that?
I think that's the hope. We have these different levels of reviews of plans, and we're trying to streamline that. And that's on a local level. If you have a local engineer that has been, approved to do the work, why not rely on him? Why and you would save days and months or weeks or years of going back and forth to Baton Rouge for 30% plans, 60% plans. So that is one way that we're going to streamline. But I want to go back and say, this is all constructive criticism. We are not here to throw stones at DOTD. We're here to give them the tools to get their job, to let them perform their job with all the rigid rules that they must face. And these new employees that are coming in, God bless them. And we want them to have their new ideas and innovation and say, okay, we need to do it this way and not rely on the old ways. We got to embrace that. And we need to work as a team in a way that's going to get our transportation system in our state in a better position. And that's the whole purpose of all this. But that's where we are. And we're here to do
Senator,
the right thing.
let me follow up. Obviously, Texas seems to be moving much more quickly in all of its road construction projects. Somebody is pointing out that, when they drive in Texas, they always see road work underway. Did y'all study, as part of the discussion about restructuring, reorganization, did y'all study at all about what other states have done in ways that we are different from other states? And then Secretary Donahue, I want you to jump in as well about what we do differently. But are there things we do fundamentally here that make it more problematic than what other states do, like Texas?
I think Joe can better answer that question. I think the Boston group did comparisons in Tennessee and Texas and put it in a report. Joe, any thoughts on that?
That's precisely right. That's what I was going to say, Chairman. Is that really was the task that was given to the Boston Consulting Group, was to benchmark DOTD among some of its peer agencies to determine if and where we were outliers, under the assumption that those areas would be the ones that were primed to focus on for reformation or improvement. And so to answer your question, Melinda, yes. And actually the folks that we brought on board to assist with the transformation efforts, the implementation of those initiatives, they have done the same exercise for reforming DOTs in other states. I would say the primary examples are in Arkansas and Tennessee, where there's two firms that are working together for Louisiana. And are very familiar with the operations of others, have former FHWA officials that are working there as well, the Federal Highway Administration with our federal partner agency. And so yes, and you read the report, I'm sure. And the primary outlier is in the funding of the transportation infrastructure of our state and those other peer states. That is why you see so much construction going on in others, and why our backlog just continues to grow.
There are several questions in here about engineers, and it seems as though DOTD has had some difficulty with keeping engineers on staff and losing them to the private sector. Is there an interest in perhaps outsourcing engineering specifically, and what kind of financial impact would that have to the department if outsourcing is the best approach for that?
Is that for me, Melinda?
I'm going to go with you, Secretary Donahue,
Sure.
and then if Senator Connick wants to jump in, he's more than welcome.
I'm good with that one. So,
so certainly, I kind of touched on this a little earlier, in as much as we do farm out a lot of our engineering work, most of our engineering work, more than half. And so, as is usual with private industry versus government work, those private firms typically pay more and offer other incentives that are not available to Senator Connick's point under the civil service system. So there is, for lack of a better term, a revolving door It's very frequently when someone retires from DOTD, they will go to work from the private sector. But oftentimes, you know, if they're under one of the newer retirement systems or not as invested in their state service, they will leave DOTD and go to work for the private sector, making, you know, multiple tens of thousands of dollars more a year than they were working for the state. And so that is something, you know, that we have to contend with. And again, this is not just Louisiana DOTD. This is DOTs across the country. Always, it is about labor and your ability to recruit the folks that will stay with the agency and do the work and obtain and gain that institutional knowledge that really in transportation infrastructure is such a complex area. That you know, even me in my position, I mean, you know, I cannot tell you the number of areas in the department where I am a complete novice. And it just takes so much time to understand. Yeah, I understand the broad strokes and I understand certain areas very well. And other areas just kind of escape me, and I work to learn and try to understand those. And so the more folks that you can have that you rely on, that know it backwards and forwards, the better off that everybody will be.
Senator Connick, obviously the bills envision a different organizational structure for DOTD writ large, and the department has a lot of employees. From the legislative perspective, are you expecting that reorganizing the department could lead to layoffs or the shrinking of staff at the department, or is that not really the focal point for you?
Yeah, I don't know what the end result's going to be, but we have to streamline and be more efficient. And if we can reduce the number of folks, and that's just the reality of the business. But as going in for specific purposing, we got to eliminate these people. Don't eliminate, if we need them, we can't eliminate them. We need to make sure that we have the personnel to fulfill the role. So, and I think that's one of the things were discussed in the meetings of, okay, what was our goal here? The goal is to become more efficient, product delivery, in what is the ramifications of that? We don't know yet.
Okay, Secretary Donahue, do you, based on what you've seen of the bills, do you think that they would involve you shrinking staff or just restructuring where staff is located?
I've asked those very pointed questions to Melinda and have not gotten, it was very similar to Senator Connick's response, which I appreciate 100%. You know, I guess I don't know at this point. Again, you know, I think that depending on if the funding remains the same, that I think eventually, yes, that is the inevitable result. If there is an influx of new revenue,
The inevitable result being layoffs.
laying off of employees, absolutely. If there is additional funding and we have more work, then I do see kind of that BCG model, in as much as maybe you know, certain positions don't get filled as they get vacated, and those positions are then repurposed for project management roles or you know, administering those contracts with the third parties or something similar to that. And again, for an agency, you know, a state of our size, we are not an outlier as far as personnel or anything else, or anything personnel related. So you know, it's hard for me to justify you know, just a flat laying off of personnel, I think, given that there is so much work that is to be done. And you know, everybody serves a purpose that is employed by DOTD. What that purpose is may evolve and it may change as the agency changes and as we implement these initiatives, and hopefully down the road get some additional funding. But I don't disagree with the thing that Chairman Connick said. Yes, if there is a position there that provides no benefit to the people of the state of Louisiana, then there is no reason to keep that cost on the books. But by and large, like I said, that's not the case. We cannot keep all of the positions that we have filled because of turnover and because of the lack of competitiveness with private industry in most cases. And so, under those circumstances, to then go and cut a swath of folks out of there just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But absolutely, if efficiencies are found and things change, then I said I would be fully supportive of transitioning some of those positions to new purposes. But we do have a lot of work to do.
All
Can
right. Yeah, Senator Connick, please respond sort of last word before we wrap up.
Yeah, I just want to go back. I've been in the legislature since 2008, and for years, about 6 years, I fought uncovered the waste and abuse of the Crest City Connection Bridge in New Orleans. That was a 200-member department, separate and apart of DOTD, but they were collecting 22 million a year in tolls and spending 27 million on themselves, and they promised us on the West Bank 10 projects in statute. None of that was done. And so if that we fought and we got rid of that department and we had to lay off 200 people because they were not serving the needs of the state. They were collecting money to just pay themselves and nothing was getting done. So that's the kind of stuff that has to stop, and we stopped it. I'm not saying it's taking place now, but that's one example of the bureaucracy that we dealing with in the past with state government, that we did have to eliminate some jobs.
I want to thank y'all so much. I want to thank all our participants that put in questions. I wish we could get to all of them. I suspect we will come back to this topic at some point in the future. We had an overwhelming number of respondents and an incredible number of questions and a number of details. Definitely, I think there's an appetite for revisiting this, and also, if not, civil service reform, because that came up quite a bit as well. Thank y'all so much. I really appreciate it. I thought this was a great discussion, great model of intense discussion of important things, but also in a very civic and polite way. So I want to thank y'all both for modeling that wonderful behavior. I want to thank everyone. This webinar will be online. We put the link in there already, but if you signed up, we'll send you an email as well when we get that online. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a wonderful week.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.